Good news, everybody. You're Pexin with the Legends. And we're here, your editing team from thegamer.com. My name is Eric, and I'm excited because, you know what? The end of The Broken Ghost was exactly what I wanted it to be. I'm a happy boy.
I'm Lumbago. My real name's Whitney. I am also pretty pumped about how everything turned out. I'm really, really excited to talk about it with my buddies today.
I'm
Right.
Andrew /Finn, and yeah, they actually did some cool stuff at the end of the quest here, and I'm also excited to talk to my good friends on this podcast today with you.
Well, we're all so excited. Let's get right into it because it's like a huge lore week. Pretty much everything we have to talk about is about the end of this quest. So we finished the artifact. We have our final hunt, which I liked a lot. Actually, it reminded me of some of those earlier hunts that were interesting, and it gave me an idea of like some kind of limited game mode or something where Revenant's alt put you into that super fast like one hit melee Revenant form. I think that'd be really cool because it's so fun to like run around and slide and punch people and flail at them in monster form. I thought that was cool, although it is kind of a weird like evil Revenant showing up just for that one chapter and being like, hey, I'm gonna help you out. That was pretty weird.
Let the power flow through your veins.
Yeah.
That was like his last line. It's like, all right, I guess that's what he wanted.
Here's some super speed as a parting gift. Like, who is that guy? But we'll see him again at Halloween, I assume. But yeah, run around in swamps, getting charged up. Not a bad one. Not a bad one to end on. Certainly better than the last few. What did you guys think?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with you. Like, this was one of the few that I feel like I was incentivized to actually kill every single prowler, except for the evacuation where they like don't stop coming.
Yeah,
and they don't stop coming, and I'm just kidding. But yeah, so I pretty much ran around in the Revy form, just beating down those prowlers for fun. And of course, the atmosphere in the Halloween world is always really cool. Swamps is a cool setting for like. A lot of the water was like green, all sorts of weird stuff. And of course, just the fact that there was some minor dialogue from the evil Revenant because the normal Revenant's not evil.
Yeah.
And just having a different objective, right? Smashing through doors in various houses to get the totems. I was kind of expecting that it would be something maybe a little different since you had to charge 5 pylons, but I can't have everything. It still felt cool. The atmosphere was really cool.
Yeah.
It was just a better version of the hunt, like Eric was saying, kind of reminiscent of some of the first ones. So yeah, that was a nice treat.
Whitney, you liked it?
Oh yeah, definitely. I actually didn't get through it the first time. I was very embarrassed. I actually quit out because you do get an extra life, and then the second time I don't remember whether I died. Yeah, I did actually at some point. But I'm just like, oh, I feel like I'm cheating, that this should be so easy. But those things do so much damage if they hit you.
It was harder to play solo, for sure. I did Octane just so I could run through everything.
That would have been a good idea.
I also really liked at the very end when you get to the ship and there's just like 100 of those prowlers around the ship. That was pretty cool. We haven't seen an ending like that. So we grab the final piece. And then we get into the story chapter. It starts with Bangalore providing overwatch outside of Loba's ship. Revenant shows up for their showdown, but the twist is that Revenant wants to die. And well, let me know, what did you guys think of this, Andrew? You're laughing.
That's the way you said it. Revenant wants to die. Very Zoomer, very, very Gen Z of Revenant.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought it was a decent twist, because you could kind of tell that the relationship between he and Loba wasn't going to be cut and dry. Like, and at the end, it's exactly what you thought it is, and he's just gonna kill Loba. Of course, he had something, he wanted to discuss, and I thought it was. I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense if I'm thinking about someone whose mind's been replicated and put endlessly into a bunch of uh, frames. uh, it doesn't seem that much of a stretch for the lore for him to actually want to die. And he's been alive for 3 centuries, I think he said. So apparently Revenant's really old. He's an old boy. Yeah, I thought it was cool. I kind of liked it. I didn't think of it too much, aside from the fact that, I wouldn't want to just relive my life over and over again like a Groundhog Day scenario. So him wanting to team up with her just to see it through. And of course, he revealed that in his programming, he's not allowed to destroy his own source code.
Right.
So they kind of covered their tracks with that one. But yeah, pretty cool.
But that was, it was interesting to me because we've always known sort of that Revenant was very, very upset with his situation. That was the whole glass out of the neck and him realizing that he might have actually been human, right? That he wasn't who he thought he was. I'm sorry, that he was actually a simulacrum.
Mhm.
And that's why he was so angry and kind of like went on that rampage piece after that, right? Because basically there was the massacre scene that we saw, and then he gets the glass stuck in his neck and he sees his reflection and he rips it out. And then he realizes that he's been like in this robot form, and that was the sort of transformational moment. But we sort of understood that he's very, very angry about that having been what happened. And we can also imagine, oh, well, they'll position him as this like crazy murder death robot. But I don't know if I ever mentioned this theory out loud, but I kind of guessed that these two would end up working together, just because they wanted the same thing, right? At least to a degree, right? Like she wanted the source code, and we knew that like Revenant was interested in what she was after,
Yeah.
But I think that the way that they tied it together was really, really interesting. And like, I'm interested to see, we have all these voice lines of them hating each other, but like, we'll see how it turns out if they give us different voice lines that are
interesting.
like, they're BFFs now. But he did still kill the parents, but like, we're talking about someone who doesn't remember
Did still
or
kill the
know.
parents.
But he doesn't know, like he was programmed to do that. And like, do you have some amount of empathy for somebody who was literally programmed to be a cyborg murder thing? And maybe they remember that memory now because they have all those years of memory, but every time it was like a fresh slate, so they didn't have any memories before or after. Then all of a sudden, when this like weird hiccup happens, the all 300 years come back, and it's not just leaving, Loba with her parents dead on the ground. It's leaving like hundreds and hundreds of other people,
Right.
So it'll be really interesting. And I also think it was like a way to make someone, who was kind of like irredeemable. Like it was a really clever way to make them redeemable,
Yeah. Sympathy for the cyber robot devil. Yeah, I totally agree. I really liked that beat where he explains how that glitch brought back all the memories of all of his deaths and everything he had done. It kind of, I'm gonna nerd out a little bit, but it kind of reminds me of Angel getting his soul back in Buffy and having to relive all of the evil things he's done as a vampire. Anyway, we'll move on from that. So I like that a lot, and I really like the question that it poses for Loba. Like if she ultimately wants to get her revenge, is helping him escape his eternal torment revenge, or is letting him live and suffer the real revenge? Is the worst thing that you can do to someone is letting them live and suffer.
Yeah, Loba's the real loser here because both options are pretty lame for her.
Yeah. Now it's just like, oh, you kind of took this away from me, and he knows that too. Like he's still a bastard,
Yeah.
So I thought that was a good turnaround. I also really liked the moment where he's like, yeah, why do you think I was breaking into all those Hammond facilities? And I was like, oh, duh. Like this whole time I've been waiting to find out who he was working for. And it turns out like it's just, Occam's razor. He was looking for his own source code. Like he was just doing what you'd think he'd be doing. There wasn't somebody like pulling the strings. That's what he was up to. The same thing that we're up to.
But why did he kill Forge? No, we know that he killed him to get in the games, but but he was a product of Hammond, right? So it was also just to sort of like probably lash out at his anger as far as that goes.
Yeah.
Because we have to remember that that moment happened. That moment happened before we got his backstory. So I guess I don't really know the timing of like that because he was going to be the new Ret Legend, and then it ended up being Revenant after he killed Forge, which is I guess what he wanted. So it must have occurred after he had already had that glitch happen. So it wasn't like he was programmed to go in there for some reason and kill him. So it's like he almost turned against his parents, for lack of a better word, but like the company that birthed him or birthed him as a mercenary or whatever.
I want to say that if you go back and read the chapters again, there's definitely going to be some like narrative dissonance where it doesn't make sense that Revenant's doing what he's doing if you know that he wants the same thing that they do. Like where he's just being like phony evil for the sake of subverting our expectations, you know?
That's just his hobby.
Yeah. But oh well, I can get over that. So Revenant, sorry, can you hear that?
No.
Okay, good. So Revenant bugs out and Bangalore drops in to, I guess, give some sympathy for Loba and gets a call from Gibraltar about finishing the artifact. And Gibraltar is like, you're not going to believe what we built. And what we built, none of us could believe, especially Andrew, who doesn't even know who this person is because he hasn't played Titanfall.
Listen.
So the big reveal here is that the artifact we've been building this entire season is Ash from Titanfall 2. Whitney, did this blow your mind wide open?
Well, it was going to blow my mind wide open, but I think I mentioned early on that I read a spoiler. And
so lame.
Like an accidental spoiler. I was not like going out and seeking out spoilers for this. So, just see it in Reddit. Apparently one of the files, the datamine files, was labeled with the name. So I knew it. Like we just knew it. And there's some amazing things here. Number one, like, for anybody who thought that the Apex team forgot about Titanfall,
right.
Apex has not forgotten about Titanfall. Like, they 100% want us to know that, like, this is happening in the same universe. And I also think this is outside the realm of lore, but I also think that all those people who want a Titanfall 3, I've said this since day one, I feel like they're going to get it. It's not going to be quite what they expect it to be, but I feel like the fact that we're merging these two worlds is something, means that we're going to see something Titanfall-like in the future. And it may not be this year, it may be like next year, but you can sort of see these worlds starting to come together. And for two fundamentally different games, I mean, I feel like it's very, very hard to keep that through line going without giving, giving the people what they want, so to say. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. The last couple of weeks, we've been talking about all of the threads and how complex this story is becoming in this, like, just a very simple battle royale game, between the lore pieces that we're getting through the hunts and now the bunker stuff with Crypto's sister and the event stuff and like all these different pieces coming together. And then you throw in the entire Titanfall backstory. It's like, it's this really deep lore thing that they're doing. It's really fascinating. So we have a lot to unpack here. So let's get into who Ash is, right? So if you've played Titanfall 2, Ash is one of the Apex Predators, which is a group of mercenaries that are brought together by a guy named Kuben Blisk. Kuben Blisk would later go on to create the Apex games. That mercenary group are the villains of Titanfall 2. You fight one of them at the end of each level. Ash is a simulacrum. She was a pilot. She got turned into a simulacrum after getting mostly killed during like some space war. And she gets recruited into the Apex Predators by Blisk. Ash is the character that took down BD at the very beginning of the game. The reason that your character gets the Titan is because of Ash. right? So at the very beginning of Titanfall 2, you find the like commander guy, and he passes BD onto you. That's because he got attacked by Ash. So you eventually fight Ash in, I think, is the coolest level in Titanfall 2, the big factory.
Oh yeah, that's right. It is cool.
If you don't remember, it's like all of these city blocks are printed, like 3D printed, and they're being moved through this factory on conveyor belts, and you have to like wall run between these sections of cities. And then at the very end, when you fight the boss, all of the pieces of the city rise up like puzzle pieces and create this town that you fight in. It's like really amazing level.
That's nuts.
Yeah. So that's Ash. So we defeat Ash. She self-destructs that like factory thing and blows herself up. And we don't see her again in the Titanfall story, but we get more of her story in the multiplayer because she gets rebuilt, and she joins one of the factions called Vincent Dynamics. They're like a Titan and weapon manufacturer. And she starts leading their army or whatever against the Remnant Fleet, which is another faction. So there's not a lot of detail about that. Like, she is fighting them. She thinks that they have answers about her past or her memories or whatever. Like, it's super vague. We don't know why Vincent Dynamics and Remnant Fleet are at war with each other. It's all like a little bit of like backstory through the multiplayer, but it's not very clear. But what we do know is that she eventually got split into pieces and buried in the shadow world of Kings Canyon. So it's like a huge leap. Like, not much to go on as far as I can tell. But Whitney, what do you think so far?
Well, just the first thing you said there that was very interesting is that we know 2 known simulacrums in the game, and they both exist in the shadow world, which is really interesting to me. But in terms of like what we think is going to happen, so that's where they found the parts. But then, just to clarify, like they came back up to Kings Canyon, not the other universe. Like it's like, unless I'm wrong, but I feel like it's like today's Kings Canyon, like where the world we're in, because there was the bunker and everything, and that's where we put this character back together.
Right.
So we are bringing somebody who's scattered in this underworld back to the overworld. And that's something I'm not a little unclear on, but hopefully we'll see how this all puts together. But I'm just like wondering if this like other world exists specifically for sort of like simulacrum work or something like that. I have no idea. Anyway, the other thing that I just wanted to say is the implications of this are huge. It's like the speculation can range from, are we going to see Titans, knowing this person's background? Is Ash going to somehow be a playable character? There's like a lot of stuff here too. I mean, I think that at one point we learned, and I might be wrong on this, but I think at one point we learned that Wraith was a former pilot. So it'll be interesting to see if they like if Ash has any context to who Wraith is, or like how Wraith exists or lives or something like that.
Yeah.
But I think that it's going to be really, really, really cool to see how this all plays out and what it means. But there's another big piece too, which I'm sure you're going to get to in just a second here.
Yeah. So we realize who Ash is when we finish building her, and I'm sure that more astute Apex players figured this out sooner, because she's another simulacrum in the story. So they could have guessed it from that. But also the title of this week's chapter is Ashes to Ashes. Or is it Dust to Dust? I don't remember.
Well, both of those phrases are said by Revenant at once. But I think you're correct in that Ashes to Ashes by itself is the title.
Yeah. And that's a big clue. In fact, I think when you finish that level in Titanfall 2, the achievement you get is called Dust to Dust or Ashes to Ashes, one of those two. So it was probably pretty obvious to some of you, but we're ding dongs, so we didn't figure it out until they spell it out. But it is really exciting to see more than just, like Octane is such a cool nod to Titanfall. Because I don't remember if we've talked about this before, but his like sort of backstory was that he lost his legs rocket jumping, and that comes from that real life player that that did that speed run on the training level by rocket jumping to get through it.
Good old Cash Mayo.
Yeah. So like there's stuff in Apex that's like a cool nod to Titanfall, but bringing Ash into the story of Apex is like, no, this is a Titanfall game. Like this is like deeply rooted in that story, and it's continuing that story from Titanfall. So that's pretty wild. And now there's like so much to dig back through because there's a lot of Titanfall lore. So
did anybody else get like GLaDOS vibes when you first walk in to rebuild Ash?
Right.
You know, like
totally.
the way she's glitching out. I was just right in Portal again, like in that room. I was like about to have to fight GLaDOS. Like I need a portal gun.
so after you read the lore, you jump into the epilogue, which was playable, which for some reason I didn't expect. I thought it was going to be another story chapter.
Yeah.
But it drops you into slums, and you make your way to that fourth bunker that I've been talking about for weeks and weeks. So hyped to get in this bunker, and it was so freaking cool.
It really was. It was
huge
well designed,
labyrinth bunker. The sound design is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Loba's in your comms, but then she starts cutting out as you get deeper into the bunker, and it just feels like it goes on forever. And
it forces you to walk too.
Yeah.
So you really drink everything in. The atmosphere is really powerful.
Yeah. And then you finally get to what's like the main chamber of the bunker. And it's all destroyed, just like the rest of the bunkers. It's long since been abandoned. And apparently taking a lot of damage, probably just from all the warfare that goes on above ground. Constantly just missiles hitting the ground right above it.
Bangalore again.
Yeah. And you find Ash's body all plugged into this crazy rig. There's all this like these energy pools of like electricity or something all surrounding her. It's an awesome scene. And there's like a cinematic. Octane puts her head back on. She like really creepy, like The Grudge or something, like comes to life, like the Ring Girl, and says a lot of things that I'm going to read now. It's all gibberish and it's super long, and this is probably a terrible thing to do on a podcast, but I'm going to read all of the nonsense that she says when she comes to life, okay? All right, here we go. Do you hear me, pilot? AlphaGate 37 49 23 9 hike. Who doesn't like ice cream? Every kid likes ice cream. Betagate, Tango to Quebec, Juliet 8 Romeo, Oscar 1 Whiskey, Dorado, Darien, Failsafe, who's got the failsafe? Deltagate, comma, Niner, question mark, ampersand, 4-5 period, Deltagate, comma, Niner, question mark, ampersand, 4-5 period. Ah, just a wee bit of betrayal before breakfast, eh, dearie? Gammagate, 5 across. I'm not even halfway done. 5x5 682410869244211119527811x. X equals the temperature of the negative space, not the specimen itself. Do you fear me, pilot? AlphaGate 37 49 23 9 hike. All roads lead to Branthium. Ashes to ashes, ashes to ashes. The path ends here. Welcome to Olympus. So, I mean, obviously, you guys get it.
Yeah.
We don't really need to go
cohesive.
Yeah, we don't really need to go into that.
It explains itself, so we'll just move on.
After that,
the ice cream.
The ice cream? Let's hone in on the ice cream.
Can we just talk about what flavors here
all kids love
she could be talking about?
That is
Listen, the cake is a
100%.
lie. All kids like ice cream. This is Portal. We're in Portal 2, okay? Don't forget this. There's
This
way
is
more
all
crossovers
Portal
happening.
universe.
It's not just Titanfall here.
But I am so curious about like what that one means, because it didn't seem like there was an obvious explanation. So maybe it's leading up to something, and it could be as simple as the fact that like Mirage likes pork chops and Ash likes ice cream, like, right?
Yeah.
But more likely there's some underlying, it's code word for something, because that's the way this works. All those numbers, they mean something. I'm still trying to figure out the way to get into the actual Hammond Robotics website. There's a little admin code you can answer. Yeah, go to Hammond Robotics right now.
Yo.
You got a bunch of numbers.
But
I'm sure somebody's tried that for sure.
Yeah.
But
we should still take all the credit if it's right.
Yeah.
All right.
So
but
So the big
I was
one
just gonna
here.
add that
Oh, go
this
ahead.
game is like full of puzzles, stuff like that. Like, so, there are people in the lore world who will be working these out, trying them everywhere,
Yeah.
trying to figure out exactly what they mean.
Yeah, of course. And I think people are already hard at work, but I think so far this all kind of sounds like nonsense to everyone. And there's a lot of it. There's a lot of numbers and there's some names. And so once the scene finishes, we have a text chat between Lifeline and Octane, right?
Yep.
And
AOL Instant Messenger.
And there's two details from this that they're really focused on. The numbers themselves, the numbers scare them, and the names.
Yep.
The two names are Eduardo and Darion. And those are not names we've ever heard before in Titanfall lore. So those are the two names that they're worried about. But what we also get from this, the big takeaway from all of this is Olympus. Olympus is the home planet of Lifeline and Octane, and all signs would seem to point that Season 6 will introduce Olympus as the next map in Apex Legends. Let's get a round of applause, folks.
Apex
Let's
Legends
go.
in space, baby.
It's Olympus is an asteroid.
Isn't it a city in the sky though?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, like, isn't it like not as much a planet as it is a city in the sky? Something along those lines.
That was,
and you know that loading screen, Battle Pass 60 something that I was trying to get and eventually revealed that I didn't have the Battle Pass at all. That loading screen is Olympus, apparently.
So so the one other thing we know, well, there's a lot of stuff we know about Olympus, but the other important thing is that is where Loba's parents were killed. So that cinematic, that like dinner party and stuff, that's Olympus. And I think I said last week that like whatever the artifact turns out to be, like my number one would be new map. And they they heard it, they scrambled. They were like, we gotta
did it just for you.
Pexin with the Legends has spoken.
We
like,
gotta get a new map in the game.
They are the people's voice. Let's throw it together.
But like, yeah, huge. Like nothing is bigger for a battle royale, and especially Apex, than a brand new map.
And I would say too, really quickly too, at the beginning, I remember I specifically pointed this out, that there was a split second where they pointed to like another facility on another planet, which is where Revenant was located, or Revenant. And I don't remember whether that was like the Olympus facility or what. For some reason, Santhome is like sticking in my head, which is something still totally different. So I'm just telling you, we're not done yet.
No, not by a long shot. Yeah. This is definitely one of those more questions than answers.
Yeah.
And makes the world of Apex so much bigger. I think. So I guess let's just spitball for a second here. Like, what do we want to see in I'm gonna take this as confirmation, because if this is not a third map, they are dumb as nails, because everybody is so hyped now.
Like, they really framed it like there's a third map. So if they didn't understand, that's how they were framing things.
Because in that voice log, one of them, Octane's like, I'm not going back there, whatever, and then Lifeline's like, I'll go wherever the games take us. So like, okay, confirmation.
Yeah,
Olympus
like
is
the
next.
last words of the entire lore section of Apex.
Well, the very end was the end until Season 6.
And then in parentheses, Olympus. I'm just kidding.
So let's assume Olympus is the next map. What does the third map of Apex need?
Because to me, it seems like, based on everything that I know about Olympus, which is not much at all, it's going to be very high society, high-rise buildings, futuristic stuff. I think I saw some concept stuff regarding Olympus, and it was all really cool, like very urbanized. Not to draw comparisons too soon or anything, but almost like the hyper urbanized sort of feel of Hyperscape, like that sort of thing, but Apex, which is, I'm like, even though it's really trendy right now, like, obviously Cyber 2077 and all this stuff, like, to have this sort of cyberpunk, like futuristic, hyper urbanized environment, I'm kind of into it. Like, because I like what Respawn does with stuff. And I would be more than happy to fight in an environment like that, especially if it's like a city in the clouds, you know, Cloud City Star Wars. Any of those vibes, I'm happy with it.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
I mean,
Go ahead.
I
Sorry.
feel like since day one, we sort of saw original Kings Canyon. We'll call it Vanilla Kings Canyon, but we did have good old Skull Town. And I imagine that like they'd been working on like new zones or new maps from pretty early on, like maybe while the game was still in concept, right? But what they would have learned from that is that they needed more cover in certain areas and people like more buildings and things like that. So when they gave us World's Edge, and I just remember being so pumped on that trailer and just seeing, oh my gosh, there's a snow cap area and there's these crazy buildings. And then in the middle of something, we got a planet harvester that just like ripped the zones in two and like just constantly cycling. And then the new areas of Kings Canyon are also very like I want to say like tech heavy, or like there's a focus on like that aspect of it. There's buildings, they're more developed than before. So it doesn't actually surprise me to sort of see this progression, and all of a sudden we're going to see something that would be like a lot of verticality, and a lot of like just cover, like ways that you have to creatively like navigate terrain. I'm saying terrain in like a loose sense, right? But I mean, I think it's good. And I think that we've seen more of that in Apex across the board, really, right? So it'll be nice to have another place to go. I guess I'm curious about what's going to happen to the other maps, because it's not like World's Edge just decided to stop disappearing, right?
Yeah, that's another big question I have too. I think you can imagine that when a new map gets introduced, the playlist will be only that map for, you know, at least a couple weeks. Just like how this season we had big Kings Canyon changes, and then we could only play Kings Canyon for the first 2 weeks. But then after that, like, do we start a rotation between all 3 maps? You know, or do we have separate playlists? Or do we take one of the maps out for some time? There's a lot of different ways they can go. I don't know. I personally, I feel like rotating through 3 maps would not be the best option.
Yeah, I'm also gut instinct against that. I feel like that they should do some split testing. I personally would like to have the option to play on 2 maps, and then they can gather data and then put one in, place another, get some data. Not that I want like one map to go away forever, but I agree with you in that like rotating 3 maps seems like it would be spreading things too thin. I
It's
don't know.
honestly a good idea if they want to adjust and give us like World's Edge remodeled or something. Like they wouldn't call it that, but like, all right, let's just pull it out for a little while. We can work on it. We can fix it. We can fix the glitches. We can add new things. We can, adjust the terrain a little bit. And it doesn't have to be in the game. Like we can actually work on it in a dev environment, which is apparently much easier to do than pushing out updates on the fly.
Yeah, I think it's far more likely we'll see a map go away for a certain amount of time, maybe half a season or something, and then come back. This season was all about Kings Canyon, and my cats are fighting. Last season had a lot more stuff going on World's Edge. So, if we're getting a new map next season, are we going to see another season where World's Edge doesn't get any love? Because that seems kind of a little bit off too. Like I still want to see changes for World's Edge. I still want that map to evolve, and I'm cool with Kings Canyon going on the back burner for a while. But we all have to also keep in mind that season 6 will take us into October, right? Because season 6 will start mid-August. So so if that takes us into October for the like Halloween event, I suspect we will be coming back to Kings Canyon. But that's totally an assumption.
That'd be cool though. That would work out really nicely with the timetables.
Yeah. And as for Olympus specifically, I've wanted a strictly urban map for a long time. There's some elements of that. There's some zones in in World's Edge that is like high-rise buildings and stuff. They're kind of like scattered and destroyed. But you know what? Like after playing Hyperscape and seeing how uniform that map is, like when you fill a map with tall buildings, it kind of just looks like everything is tall buildings.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously,
Yeah.
Apex has a very different style, and they will approach it totally different. But and there are Titanfall maps that are very urban, but they're also small.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like I totally agree with you. Like when it comes to what I want and what excites me, I was like, yeah, man, a full urban map and stuff. And then Hyperscape came out, and it was pretty much that. But like everything looks the same. Everything looks the same. But at the same time, that's why I'm like, I almost have more confidence in Respawn because they do such a good job making each POI super unique.
Yeah.
So even if the overarching theme had to be like all urbanized, I really feel like that they would shine in what they always have, and that they know how to make different sections of the map stand out and have their own exact feel and flavor, even if it all is united by that underlying urban, hyper urbanized feel. I feel like they would do a good job because I can't imagine Respawn releasing something that would look like Hyperscape's environment because all those POIs don't stand out visually. Like
Right.
they just have different names. That's
I was
essentially it.
just thinking toward what you're saying. Like the first thing I was going to say is like, what if the new planet is just like the Mirage Voyage, but like a bunch of them like next to each other? No, I'm just kidding.
That would be cool because that could be part of it, right? Like
I-
Starport would be one of the POIs, and it would
Yeah.
just be a bunch of docked ships. That's the thing that they're good at least seems like they're really good at it with the first two maps.
Yeah.
So
Well, and that's actually what I was going to add too, is because I think of like my favorite places to drop, and it really is like Octane Skate Park and the Wraith, what I would always call Wraith Portal Zone, but the labs, and what's the one you just mentioned, the Mirage Voyage, and ones that like really just have a lot of like unique flavor to what they are.
Yeah.
And I think that and obviously those points of interest are fun because they're sort of a contrast to what some of the rest of the areas of the map are. But it will be interesting to see how it all plays out on a new place now that they have all this data and feedback in terms of like what people are really enjoying and like the different like locations and zones that people have a lot of fun with.
Yeah.
So
I'm
pretty excited.
I could also definitely see if it is going to be a skyscraper like like a major metropolitan city, then I could also see like geographical divisions of like class, and you have like a slum area of the city, and divide sections of the city up. And because the other thing they're so good at is telling a story with the environment.
Wait. We just mentioned that the world, and I don't remember where this fight took place in Titanfall, but this weird, crazy map that you said was your favorite, which is where you fought Ash in Titanfall 2.
Yeah.
Right? I wonder if Olympus has some bearing on that. I really have no idea, but that's an interesting thing to explore, to think about, and to see if we'll see some of that influence.
Yeah, and part of me wants to go, and I actually will do this, is go play a bunch of Titanfall 2 maps and see, so that we can see if there's like a lot of influence in the maps we already have, and like maybe project onto what Olympus could be, because the Titanfall 2 maps are so cool, and they're very varied. They're all very different.
Yeah, as an Apex player, I feel like it's now definitely time for me to
It's time
to get into Titanfall 2. I mean, I played Titanfall 1 when it released a long time ago, but I think it's time. I was already convinced, just knowing that its campaign is so incredible and short, so there's like no excuse to not do
game.
it. Yeah.
It's also
now,
like
now I have
$6 or something. Maybe it's more than that, but it's like under 10.
Yeah, I think I picked it up for $4 during the last Steam sale. I'm pretty sure it's $4.
I'll have to check my bank account, but we'll see.
You know what? If it's really that much of a stretch for you, I will loan you the $4.
You can borrow it.
Wow. No excuses here.
So, okay, but that is not it. We are not done with the lore dumps this week.
What?
Because another bunker opened, and we got our message from Crypto Sister, number 3 out of 3. Which, if you ask me, kind of ties into what is going on with the hunt. basically, it's pretty short. She explains that she hacked her way out. She was captured by an unknown entity, I suppose. And
Is it the Syndicate or no?
did we establish it was the Syndicate? I think so. I think you're right.
It's likely, but I don't think we know.
I
But I
guess
think it's
in a way, the
probably.
Syndicate is an unknown entity, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so she hacked her way out. She managed to escape. We sort of already knew that because of the trailer for Lost Treasures, right? Because she comes over Crypto's drone and talks to him and warns him. But she warns him again in this audio clip. And what she tells him is that all of this is run by one person, and that person is watching Crypto from the inside. That's what she says. Fascinating. Whitney, what's your take?
Well, I mean, immediately, we already know it's like a known thing that the person who started the Apex games and who runs the Apex games is Blisk, right? But what we also know is that we haven't seen Blisk in a while. So it's my understanding that we haven't seen this character for some amount of time, over a year, if I recall correctly, since the day that like what we know as Apex Legends began. He hasn't been seen since before that.
He has been missing. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, you have to think about the fact that like they can't just randomly keep adding new characters willy-nilly. Because I talk like that, I guess, say willy-nilly and things like that. But they can't just keep adding new characters without having some context or subtext for like who they are, right? So if it's someone on the inside, it's either someone that we know or someone that we know of, right? And there's Blisk. I remember that some of the documents were signed by someone called Q, if I remember correctly. Maybe that sounds right. There's a PR person we know about. There's the reporter that we've seen. You know, she's been around a little bit. There's the person that Octane went on the date with, Yoko. So we're really only looking at a handful of cast of characters that we either know or know of their existence, right? And again, we got these two new characters in that were mentioned by Lifeline and Octane, and I'm very curious to see where that goes, but I think we're going to find they're somehow related to, you know, Bangalore's brothers all went missing in action, and they sound like possibly male names, right? So anyway, all this to come full circle to say like, what does this all mean? I guess I would say that it's super exciting. And I forgot what the original question was, honestly, but I'm very excited about who I think it is. That's right, Blisk. So that's one of the reasons that I think that's who it is, because he is the most inside person in the entire thing who hasn't actually made an appearance yet. But we know he's lurking. We know he's involved somehow. We know that he has a huge stake in someone having the algorithm for who's winning the games, you know? Which makes me think it's like him instead of someone else who's like an actual legend.
Yeah.
Either that or it's Forged and he's still alive. So.
Stop it. Yeah. So my mind went to Blisk too, because mostly because of Ash. Because as soon as they were like, oh, we're gonna bring like the Titanfall 2 story up to date, I started thinking about Blisk and how Blisk is missing, and now somebody is secretly watching Crypto and doing all these things, and it seems like there's all these threads, but it's probably safe to assume that these threads are more tied together than it seems right now. And that Ash's body being in that bunker and Crypto being watched and us going to Olympus are all connected to Blisk. That's sort of where my mind is at right now.
Yeah.
I mean,
and he's originally a mercenary, right?
Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting too, because like, I don't remember exactly like where it left off, but like, I don't know that like Ash and Bliss left off on like the best foot. You know what I
Not at
mean?
all. She
Not
blew
at
up the
all. Okay,
building
that's what I
museum.
remember.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, duh. Okay, yeah. All right. I just wanted to make sure that my memory's right there. So if we get these two other competing characters, whether they come in this season, next season, or maybe Blisk always runs the game and is never a playable character, you know? But if we get all these characters in, it will be interesting to see their sort of like dynamics with one another in terms of that piece of the lore and the backstory as well.
Yeah.
Which is again why I love the writing in this game, because it's so hard, I think, to make any kind of story into a battle royale. And the fact that they've done it in so many different ways, like storytelling is such a unique piece of what Respawn has been able to do, that I'm just sinking my teeth into it, you know?
Yeah.
But you just feel like it's not enough. You just like, you know, someone gave you like half an Oreo and you're like, no, I want the whole pack of Oreos.
Right. We also have to consider that now that we know the artifact was Ash, Hammond wanted Ash. Why does Hammond want Ash? Could it be to get to Blisk or find Blisk or whatever, you know? Hopefully these are all things that are like the story's going to continue directly and not go off in another direction. I kind of have like PTSD from Destiny storytelling. The way that everything sort of like builds up to a cliffhanger and then tells a different story next season that builds up to a cliffhanger and then the next season tells a different story and you're like, are we ever going to get back to what just happened?
Frustrating.
I really hope season 6 jumps right back in to this conflict between Loba, Hammond, Revenant, and now Ash, and by extension Blisk, right? That's the story that I want to see moving forward for sure.
And I did just want to touch on the Octane and Lifeline thing too really quickly. We know that Lifeline, if I remember correctly, is sort of, her parents are, she's against what her parents are for, you know? So I do think it's interesting that like they seem to have some secret that's just between them that they know from their collective childhood about this planet. And what does that mean as well? So I'm very, very interested. And they've done a great job of solidifying those two as like buddies, right? Like just your childhood friend that you kind of like Lifeline secretly hates him, but like could never also like get through the day without him. We all have friends like that, or is that just me? But anyway, but I'm like
Friends,
really happy.
co-hosts.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that'll be a really interesting piece as well to pick apart and understand like what their shared narrative is and how that ties back to the bigger piece, because we know it does. I mean, again, I want to like sort of like, I feel like we talked about this at one point, but we're past Act 1. We know who all the characters are. They can keep introducing them, but like there has to be a good setup or a good reason at this point. So I think we have like at least some sense of the primary cast of characters at this point.
Yeah. The more I think about it, it's like we have so many different plot lines going on, you know, because like besides crypto stuff, like there was all kinds of little tidbits throughout this story with all the different characters that there's more to learn about, like pretty much all of them and the bigger story. Crazy for a battle royale. True.
And I mean, again, we haven't seen that much Mirage. Like, where's his story going? I mean, we've seen a lot of Mirage, but we haven't seen a lot of Mirage lore, and that'll be really interesting to explore. We know a little bit about Caustic's weird secret history, but you know, we learned a little bit more about him as a character, and how's that going to factor into what happens. You know, I'm just so curious about everybody.
Yeah.
So give us some answers, Respawn.
Yeah. So the last little thing that we touched on earlier, but is those two names, Darian and Eduardo. Not names we've ever heard before, but my inkling is that Hammond still wants someone in the game. I think that especially after the events of this season, where the legends were sort of like let loose and were free to just run around and do whatever they want and underneath everyone's noses, you know, like there was a lot of like subterfuge going on between the legends and stuff like that. But as far as like Hammond is concerned, or any of the other forces and factions in the games, like the legends are just doing whatever they want. And I could totally see Hammond or some other faction wanting to get some more spies and wanting to get some more hands into the game. And maybe those names, which we already know Octane is scared of these people, maybe those are characters that are coming, and those are the actual names of some code names we already know, like maybe Nova, or what were some other ones, like Rampart or whatever,
Yeah,
like maybe we
or-
actually already do know those characters. Yeah. Wow.
I think that's likely.
Yeah, it's I think it's also, I mentioned the theory about related to Bangalore. Mirage has a bunch of brothers too, right? Although I don't know if they're necessarily scary, but I'm just trying to think of like the sort of family backgrounds of the people that we know, to see if there's any tie-in. Because again, like I don't think we're at the point where we can just randomly bring people in out of left field. I mean, we can in that scenario, but wouldn't it be really cool if it did tie back to somebody that we already know of, even if we don't really understand the context for why we know them, right?
Yeah.
So I am curious to see. Maybe they just have a bunch of dirt on Octane,
Right.
and that's
Well,
why he's so afraid, right?
that would make sense. Yeah, Lifeline seemed less afraid, for sure.
Yeah.
Wow. Ultimately, let's kind of do a wrap up here of the entire quest line. Sort of meets expectations, exceeds expectations, doesn't meet expectations. How would you like to sum up this quest line?
I mean, the gameplay piece, once you understood what it was, that it, like, personally, like, I would have loved them to be, like, missions, like, longer, like, more reward-based, that kind of stuff like that. But, that aside, once you realize, like, what they are, because they're really just teasers or, like, playable commercials or something almost, right? It's hard to explain. I feel like that really downplays the significance, but, I feel like once you got that, it was actually a really cool way to spread like the lore out throughout the course of the season and get a lot of story into the game without really having to just work within the confines of like teasers and like, traditional like cinematics or whatever. So I give it like I don't know, 5 stars for creativity for sure, right? Execution, I feel like there could have been like a little bit more glam to it, but I also feel like this was an experiment. And if it was a huge disaster, I'm sure they would have been like, okay, we just want to scrap it. They didn't want to spend a ton of money on it. But if it's something that people are really enjoying, that's like the magic of a live service game. They can say, like, okay, well, we did this in this season. It's going really well, so we're going to make it even better next season, right?
Yeah, totally. Andrew, how do you feel?
Yeah, I would say it meets expectations, and if anything, probably slightly exceeds, just in that I'm more interested by the end of this than done with it. So the weakest aspect was just the middle section of the quest, which, in and of themselves, they weren't very significant. However, the story and how everything ties in from just the quests alone and all the extra stuff that we're getting, like Crypto's sister, et cetera, how that stuff all seems to be tied in, and even tied into Titanfall is kind of cool too. I think is really engaging and pretty above and beyond when it comes to the genre of battle royale. Of course, they're not going the same direction as Epic when they're trying to work in mainstream culture, like Travis Scott concert stuff. But they're doing this lore dive that you never get with battle royales. I think it's really, really cool. So I'm like, without any trailer hype yet, more looking forward to the next season than ever before because of it.
Yes.
So to me, that's a success. And I think that they can learn from the stuff that wasn't executed super well. Hopefully, if they plan on continuing some of this strategy to give players more access to lore and stuff like that. So yeah, I kind of have a positive overall view.
I mean, Apex Legends right now is a battle royale game, and I think that will always be the core of it. And I've said this before, but like, I think it has the potential to be something incredibly robust, right? And if you think about it like a similar game, let's just use Destiny 2 as an example. Like the first couple expansions were, um, they were extra content and they build on like the actual story. And then the third expansion, they just blew you away in the terms of the amount of content and amount of cool things they added and ways to play and stuff like that. And I think that if they want to keep attracting new players and also they want to keep the players that they have, that's going to be the way to do it. So of course, if you're me, you really do want to see like, is there a story, like does it branch out to like a PvE, just like element that you can always turn to and play, like in Destiny and these like sort of games, where the battle royale is the core, but there's all this stuff happening outside where you can do missions and quests and accomplish stuff and get up on fire teams or whatever it is. And maybe that's crazy, maybe that's not quite it, but we do know that they've added a lot of people to the staff over at Respawn just to support this game. So it definitely, they're making something bigger. What do they say? Bigger than the sum of its parts?
Yeah. I think this was the coolest way to hype up new content of all time. Just like a weekly engaging lead up to a reveal like this. I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like this. And the fact that the payoff for all of this like time investment is that for one thing is just like being engaged with the lore and feeling like I'm part of the story and I know what's going on. That's really cool. But more than anything, it's like I'm one of the first people to know that there's a new map and I'm part of a community that's really excited for that. And there will be casual players that see the trailer for Olympus in 2 weeks and they're hyped too, but not in the way that we are right now. Because we were there when it happened in a sense, and, I think that way of introducing new content and making it meaningful, because for everyone else, Olympus is just the new map, but for us, it's the next chapter of the story. By us, I mean the people that are engaged with the hunt. I think that's really cool. I'm really excited about that. I hope that sort of storytelling to introduce new content continues. When I think about similar type games, like Overwatch characters are usually all really cool. They have cool backstories, but every time they introduce a new character, it's like completely out of nowhere. They're just like, here's a new part of the story you've never heard before, and this person's from this place, and this is their story, and it never feels like it's part of a whole.
Yeah, exactly.
But with Apex, it feels like everything that gets introduced to the game is part of the story that's advancing.
Yeah, and it feels like they have their fingers in so many different mediums to tell that story, which is really cool. Like I like the return to text. You'd never expect that in like a battle royale.
Yeah.
Where like to get as deep as you want to, you'd have to some dialogue section. That there's all sorts of stuff they've experimented. So like the storytelling aspect, there's a lot of creativity in that, and to me that's super interesting. Even if not all of it's successful, I think it's super cool that they're trying different sort of strategies to unveil the story.
Yeah, I think the worst thing about this the new content this season was playing it, and that is definitely a problem. It reeks of like cut content, which is unfortunate, but it also is something that can be fixed. I think it's clear that they have really good ideas and they just couldn't execute.
Honestly, I bet if they sold it as like in a supplemental bundle, like someone's paying for it.
Yeah, always.
Probably me.
Yeah.
But the one other thing I wanted to add is that like I see everywhere that it's just like oh, Apex Legends, they should do a TV show, they should do a movie. They don't need to. They've already built their cinematic universe, kind of, they don't have comic books, but they have, the lore that exists online they've built. They've had the lore that exists within the game. They have the stuff that's ancillary that you have to know from the Titanfall stuff. So if you really want to get deep on that piece of it, and look, I'm not saying I'm opposed to an Apex Legends movie at some point, but I think it can't be digging up of like the stuff that we already have. I think it has to be a new story, not like a new story. I want to make sure that I'm clear, but like it has to build on the world we've already created now. Like, right? It's not just rehashing the events of Apex Legends. It's something totally new,
Right.
So
yeah,
I think that But they already kind of have that with their long cinematics that are just gorgeous every time they're executed, you know?
Yeah, totally. I didn't love the moment to moment of the hunt, but I am no less excited to see what they do next season.
Yep.
And I assume, just knowing their history, that it's going to build on these ideas and it's going to be better than it was before. I'm totally ready to do this all over again next season. Not fatigued, although I have to say I am glad that the Broken Ghost is over. It's
I'm
done and I'm happy.
Yeah.
I need a break.
Like those packs and stuff.
Yeah.
They got $1.50 out of me too. So
I did.
I bought 5 total, so that's 125 Apex coins.
Yeah.
I did 1 a couple of weeks ago, and then I had to do 4 this week.
Oh yeah. Wow.
So not too bad.
It as far as the future of the show, I think that there are 4 weeks left this season, and I think it's safe to assume that there's going to be a bit of a lull. So I can't say for sure that we're going to be back every week. Now, obviously, when we start getting trailers for the next season and there is new stuff to talk about, even if it's just leaks, we will definitely be back to talk about stuff. But if it's just business as usual in Apex, we might skip a week here or there.
Unless you want to hear me and Finn argue more about skill-based matchmaking. So. Let us know in the comments.
Yeah. So, obviously we won't be able to announce that stuff ahead of time, because one of the beautiful things about Apex is you never know what's going to happen next. But if a whole week goes by with, no updates, no trailers, no leaks, no nothing, we might end up skipping a week here or there. But rest assured that when something happens, we'll be here, and we're definitely really excited to talk about it. So that's pretty much it. Good week. Good hunt.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Plugs, Whitney?
All right. You can find me on Twitch, Lumbago, but it's Baego, like Bay. For anyone else, that stands for okay, boomer. You can find me on Twitch, and I also stream for the Gamer a few times a week. You can see me on there. Just make sure you're following us on Facebook, which you are probably if you're looking at this in there.
Finn TTV on Twitch. Catch me there, getting cyberbullied by my audience. I recently moved to Austin, so I've taken a bit of a break, just a small one, but I'll probably be returning into this week or beginning. So pretty much 5 days a week is about what I hit. Come on. Yeah.
If you have ever seen our streams on Facebook, you may have seen that the content is a bit erratic at times. Sometimes we stream a lot, sometimes we don't stream at all. But what I can tell you is that we are back to streaming a lot. So if you that is very much a variety stream. We play a lot of different stuff on the Gamers channel, but we're pretty much streaming 4 or 5 days a week on the Gamer. This week, you can go watch Whitney's VOD from today. She played Crab Fight. What is it?
King of Crab.
King of Crabs.
King of Crabs.
King of Crabs.
Big old crab fight too.
Crab Brawl. I'm going to be playing my new favorite game, Rocket Arena, tomorrow. So check that out. And then, Andrew, do you have some plan for the Gamer?
Yeah, I'm either going to be doing Ori and the Will of the Wisps, mainly because I talked to Gareth Coker, who composed the soundtrack, and that guy's awesome, and his music's amazing, and it makes me want to share a little bit of that with our audience. So either that, or a game that I haven't played yet, but I have in my library called Ato. It's just ATO. It's a very small game, but one of our editors, Sam, reviewed it, gave it some praise. I'm really interested. They're both platformers, so either way, it'll be fun, and
cool.
Some cool stuff.
Yeah. We play a lot of Apex on there, but we also try to play new stuff and introduce stuff that you don't always get to see. But it's usually new. We're there almost every day. So come check us out on the Gamers Facebook page streaming. And then that's pretty much it. So until next week or possibly the next, let's just say this, until something happens in Apex.
Very accurate.
We'll be back soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Bye.